Hi, this is Steve Harper from yourcreativelife.com with part two of how to go from idea to a script. This is the second in a series of videos where I'm taking you through my thought process and my creative process to bringing a script to life strictly from an idea. So if you missed part one, you should go back and watch part one. In part one, in short, I talked about having an idea or something I'm obsessed with, which is where my ideas come from, taking that and bringing it forward to create some sort of metaphorical conflict between two characters, one who's pro something and one who's anti something. If you want a deep dive into that, go look at episode or part one of this series. But for now, we're picking up with this concept. The idea is that I have been obsessed with deviled eggs, and we're in a deviled egg world. And I have two characters, one who is pro-deviled eggs and one who is anti-deviled eggs. As I said previously, I've had to create and decide which one of those is my protagonist, since there's always only one. And I have decided that the one who is pro-deviled eggs is my protagonist. Now, I've decided too that that person, that character, is named Horace, and that the person who is on the opposing side of Horace's view, who does not like deviled eggs, is Joan. So I've got these two characters from this idea, Horace, who's pro-deviled eggs, and Joan, who's anti-deviled eggs. And the question then becomes, in terms of creating a story, where do I go from there? Well, I go to one main place with these two characters. All of this with great brainstorming, and maybe I'm jotting down ideas or writing in a journal, or maybe just walking around and taking walks outside and beginning to percolate. But I'm really fleshing out the world of Horace and Joan. But mainly, I go to a log line. Now, a log line for me is a one-sentence description of what the show or movie or whatever, in this case, show for me, is about. So it has to pit one character against the other. It's got to tell us who the main character is, what the conflict is, and what that character is trying to do. So who the main character is, what the character is trying to do, and what the conflict is. And it has to happen in one sentence. So the formula that I like to use goes like this. When blank is trying to blank, they have to deal with the obstacle of blank. So that's one formula of a log line. It starts with when, it mentions the main character, what that character is trying to do, and what the obstacle is. Another way to do this, and another construction that I really like, is this is the story of blank, the name of that character, maybe some descriptor, who's trying to blank in spite of blank. And again, main character, what that character is trying to do, and then what that character is up against gives me a spine of what my story is going to be. So here's what I created for these characters, Horace and Joan, in the world of deviled eggs. This is the story of Horace, a brilliant, nerdy, low-level government employee who is trying to create a side business making and selling deviled eggs in spite of the fact that it's illegal to make them, and his social climbing by the book supervisor, Joan, wants to destroy the eggs and see Horace jailed for his efforts. I'm going to say that one more time. This is the story of Horace, our main character, a brilliant, nerdy, low-level government employee. That's my descriptor, so we know more about who he is and what his vibe is, who is trying to create a side business making and selling deviled eggs. That's what he's trying to do throughout my entire story. That's his goal, main character, and his goal. In spite of the fact, here's where we get to the conflict, that it's illegal to make them, number one, and his social climbing by the book supervisor, Joan, wants to destroy the eggs and see Horace jailed for his efforts. Now, sometimes it's really hard to put together a log line, and the more you practice, the more you'll get it. But I'm here to say that as you can see from this log line, suddenly, if you're like me, your brain is exploding with perhaps scenes of what could happen and the kind of flavor of this story. You know, it sounds both adventurous and maybe humorous, and maybe it's in a sci-fi world and it's got all these rules, and suddenly you can begin to see and feel, right? So I let my brain populate with those things, and I go from that log line, which tells me everything I need to know about this show. And it's also something that I'm going to reference frequently, because I'm going to know that if I get lost somewhere in the middle of my script, I can always come back to this simple spine that tells me exactly what my story is about and exactly what is trying to happen at every moment in my story. I'm going to take that log line and then begin to discover what the plot points are to make the story run. And we're going to talk about plot points and how they function and what they are in the next video. And essentially, they're hinges between the beginning of your script, the middle of your script, and the end of your script. We'll talk more about that in the next video, further covering how you go from idea to script. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Definitely like and subscribe to this video. Go to yourcreativelife.com and look at all over the place. Subscribe to my newsletter, which comes out once a month with advice for writers. And there's a bunch of free stuff, including a blog and a link to this YouTube channel where you are now. And also check out the Secret Writer podcast, which is a new offering that I'm doing with Nick Job, who's also a writer and a coach. And I think you'll find it really fun. Thanks for watching.